Hello and welcome to another episode. In today's video, we're going to be breaking down one of the most interesting and unusually complex things in surfing. So what actually is the surfing lineup? Now, a lineup in surfing refers to the area in which surfers catch waves from. How a lineup is set up will depend entirely on what kind of break you're surfing. For example, at a beach break, surfers catch waves from different banks and different peaks along the beach. However, at a reef break or point break, the lineup is more organized, where surfers need to catch waves from a very specific area. This more organized, regimented structure often means that lineup hierarchy comes into play. So lineup hierarchy is a weird thing because after all, no one owns the ocean, right? Well, try telling that to an angry local you've just burned and you'll find out pretty quickly that there is a lineup hierarchy. Now, the extent to which a hierarchy is in place is going to depend massively on where you're surfing. Anywhere with sick waves is going to have some sort of hierarchy. The extent to which it's in place will depend on where you're surfing. It will also depend on the conditions and how good the waves are. You know, if you're surfing this mellow, like really easy point break, that's really intermediate friendly, you might not have as much of a hierarchy. Whereas at a world-class point break on the day of the year, you're going to have a really strict, well-enforced hierarchy. So let's take a look at the hierarchy in sort of top-down order. So at the top, getting the best waves, you've got like the top locals and legends. So these are like people who have lived and surfed that spot every single day of their lives for, you know, like 30, 40 years. These are the guys that like the younger people in the town look up to. They might be ex-pros, they might just be really good surfers who might have even pioneered that spot. So these top locals and the best guys from that spot, they should always be getting the best waves, and at most organized like hierarchical spots they do. And you can kind of always figure out who these people are. You know, they're always on the best waves. They might sit in a pack chatting amongst each other at the top of the point, like trading off and rotating the best waves. Moving down the hierarchy, you've got the pros. So professional surfers, you'll find that at most like really good quality waves, there's always going to be a few pros in the mix on good days. Now sometimes you have the pros kind of mixed in with like the top local legends, depending on if they're at home or not. Professional surfers generally have a really good understanding of how the lineup works, and they know that the top local guys get the waves and then the pros would get the next best ones. You know, professional surfers, it's a strange one because they might be able to make a wave that a lot of other surfers might not be able to. So if you're less good at surfing, you might get caught behind on a section, whereas a better surfer might be able to make it. So the pros kind of often dominate the lineup, which I guess they put the most time into getting better at surfing. So I guess it's kind of how it should be as well. Moving down from the pros, you've then got the advanced surfers. So surfers who are really good at surfing, they might not necessarily be sponsored. They kind of make up the majority of like the more advanced lineups around the world, I guess. You know, people who can do turns, they can do cutbacks, they can do snaps, they can ride the barrel, do carves, that kind of thing. So yeah, you've got all these people like battling for the next best wave behind like the pros and the top locals, I guess. In this sort of area as well, so kind of like further down the point, you might have some other locals who might not be as local or as established in that sort of wolf pack at the top. So they might just be catching kind of normal waves and a bit more relaxed and less aggressive than like the top guys. The advanced surfers can be made up of like, I guess, some locals, some traveling surfers, just kind of anyone visiting in and around the area. These kind of people, they know their way around the lineup, they know how to get waves. So these guys are going to be putting into practice some of the things I'm about to tell you, which is kind of reading who's going to make waves, who's not going to make waves, establishing who the locals are. Now, a lot of advanced surfers kind of do this subconsciously. It's only really since I made this video that I've really kind of sat down and thought about everything I think about when I go surfing, and it's a hell of a lot. So then down from that, you've kind of got kind of like the upper end of intermediate to lower level advanced surfers, people who can ride waves comfortably at most like standard spots. They can go left and right, they can do sort of basic turns. competent in paddling out by themselves, all that kind of thing. So this kind of makes up, like, I guess, the vast majority of lineups around the world. These guys might be just taking scraps on the end section. They might not really be getting involved with a lot of wave catching, which is kind of fair enough because it can be really intimidating as an intermediate coming up to a spot with this sort of like regimented, like strict hierarchy. You won't feel it at all spots, but a lot of spots, they will always have this same sort of structure. So then behind that, you've kind of got everyone else. Now beginners, they're kind of separated, learning in the whitewater. That said, like on smaller days, especially at like beach breaks and stuff, you've got beginners mixed in with like everyone. Also, depending on the spot, you know, if it's a really friendly, mellow reef break where it's really suitable for beginners, like on the shoulder or on the end section, that's when they kind of enter into the lineup as well. And then all of a sudden you've just got all abilities and skill levels all in one lineup. It makes for a pretty hectic experience. So the lower you are in that lineup hierarchy, generally the worse waves you're going to be catching. Like you might be feeding off the scraps on the end or in the inside section. However, that doesn't mean that you need to just give up surfing crowded spots forever, because crowded spots aren't going anywhere. It's always something we're going to have to deal with as surfers. So this part of the video, we're going to get down to the real like nitty gritty stuff and find out how anyone in that sort of environment and lineup can actually get waves, because based on the hierarchy I've just told you, it kind of makes it seem impossible. And to be honest, it feels like that sometimes. You know, if you get in a bad rhythm and you're just in a really crowded lineup not catching waves, there's nothing more frustrating than watching everyone around you catching waves and you're just sat. When I'm surfing a new spot, I essentially just try and tread really carefully. I'm trying to have fun and catch waves, but without drawing too much attention to myself, because obviously I want to get waves, but the last thing I want to do is like end up accidentally snaking or dropping in on like an angry local and getting screamed at or like punched in the face. So firstly, whenever you're rocking up to like a brand new surf spot, or even one you've surfed a few times but you might not necessarily have like a deep understanding of it, it's always a good idea to just watch the waves for a bit first. I know what it's like when you rock up to somewhere new and it's pumping. You just want to literally like throw your weddy on as quickly as possible, wax up, and just head out there straight away and start catching waves. Like everyone has that. I have that all the time at new spots. But if you just take that time, like 5 or 10 minutes, just to kind of watch how the lineup's working, like see where waves are breaking, you know, are there wide sets that people are missing? Is there like an inside section that nobody's surfing? And just kind of analyzing and studying how the lineup works and moves. It's really easy to think of it as like a whole. And what I mean by that is when you think of the lineup as a whole, you're just like, okay, that's the top, that's where I take off and I surf waves to here. But when you start analyzing it and breaking it down a bit further, you'll see that there's loads of different sections and parts within the lineup. So what that can do for you is you can read that and go, okay, that bit on the inside there, it's really fast. Not many people are making it past that. So if I go and sit on the edge of that and tee off from there, I'm going to catch a lot more waves than if I just think, oh, okay, I need to go to the top and catch waves from here. And also then you're kind of staying under the radar, you're staying fluid, it's like dynamic. So once you've kind of read the lineup and kind of gotten that first idea of what's going on out there, now it's time to start analyzing the surfers. So thinking back to that hierarchy, when you're paddling out, is there one guy who's getting all the set waves? Does it look like there's like a local pack at the top kind of dominating? Is there a lot of waves going unridden, like a lot of people just sat there doing nothing? Something I always do, and now I don't consciously think about it. I subconsciously like read and analyze everyone I see in the lineup. As I'm paddling out, let's say I'm starting at the bottom, I go, okay, so these guys are learning on the inside, they're not really part of the lineup. Okay, there's a couple of like more intermediate looking guys riding mouths, like kind of shoulder hopping off the end. Okay, there's a grom catching some of these inside waves like near the rocks. Those waves look really fun, but don't necessarily want to go and like snake the little grom. There's a pack of like better surfers kind of battling for waves here. I can see at the top there's like a few guys that are chatting and talking really loudly in the lineup. They're kind of paddling just past everyone just to get back to the top. It's pretty easy to recognize that they're the locals. A couple of guys who've got stickers on their board, absolutely ripping. So yeah, I'm kind of just looking at everyone in the lineup and trying to not necessarily categorize them, but try and get an idea of who's doing what out there. So going deeper still, I'll look at the pros and go, okay, so they're catching a couple of waves here, they're not really going to be falling off, so it's probably a stupid idea to go and just sit next to them. So I might analyze that further, you know, in that advanced sort of like middle pack. I might go, okay, so that person over there, they fell off on their last 2 waves, or this guy nosedived on his last wave. So I'll look at that, remember it, and think, okay, so if there's a good set or medium-sized wave coming, I might sit next to them, and then based on what I've already seen, chances are they might fall on the next one, so I can kind of poach it off them. And then, yeah, just trying to like position yourself according to what's going on in the lineup. I might have identified that, okay, every 10-15 minutes there's kind of like a bigger cleanup set, so I might use that opportunity to, instead of paddling wide like everyone else, I might paddle further on the inside, like take it on the head, but then when that last smaller set wave comes, I might be in position to catch that whilst everyone's kind of scrambling around and, you know, getting cleaned up. I mean, you don't want to do that when the waves are really heavy and powerful and get rolled onto shallow reef, but you know, at the more mellow spots, that's something you can do. And then when you're paddling back out from the bottom, instead of like just going, oh, I need to get back to the top, analyze the lineup again, go, okay, so there's a few little fun inside ones here, you know, that section where people aren't making it, I might go sit there for a couple of minutes and try and pick off a few off the end, might sit wide for a minute, and just being like really fluid and dynamic with how you behave in the lineup. Like you don't have to be like top, surf wave down, top, surf wave down, like paddle back out. You know, you can be like always like hunting and finding opportunities within the larger lineup. If you're sat in one area and not catching waves, you can think, oh, okay, I saw those couple fun inside ones a minute ago. I might go and sit in there and try my luck there, or that fast section, I might just sit on the edge of that and try and tee off a few from there. Another thing I want to mention is about like the rules of surfing. Obviously you've got like dropping in, which means surfing in front of somebody who's already up and riding. And then also you've got snaking, which is where you paddle around somebody to get the inside and make it seem like they're dropping in on you. Both obviously not that good to do. At point breaks, you're kind of automatically going to snake some people. You can't just sit at the end of the point and kind of expect to get waves. What I like to do is kind of paddle out wide, and then when a set comes and everyone's kind of a bit confused and paddling out wide, I like to use that more like chaotic kind of opportunity to sort of get a bit further on the inside without it being so obvious. You know, I don't just want to paddle straight up the inside of like a group of 5 people. And also you don't want to like just blindly follow those rules. You know, you might end up somehow in prime position for a really good wave. But let's, for example, say you've just got back to the top of the point from catching another really good one. So technically speaking, it's your right of way for this next wave, but next to you, there's a local who's been waiting there for 30 minutes for this wave. And all of a sudden, you're calling a local guy off because you think it's your right of way, when actually they've been waiting for half an hour and you've just had a wave. It changes the rules a bit, so you can't just blindly follow the rules and be like, oh, I'm in position, this is my wave. There's like a few more things that come into it, like your wave count, how long you have and haven't been waiting. It's something I see a lot that causes a lot of conflict in these lineups. I think a lot of lineups, especially at the more like premier spots, are like comparable to like gladiator pits. Like you can't just let everyone paddle past you. You do have to have like a bit of aggression. Another thing I want to mention as well, that I think it's really important to be like honest with your ability. Now you've watched this and kind of know a bit more about the hierarchy and why that happens, and kind of makes it seem a bit scary. But to be honest, on the flip side of that, I see way more often like surfers who perhaps shouldn't or don't have the ability to be out at a certain spot, just going out there and just taking off on anything regardless of their ability. And to be honest, that makes things pretty dangerous. So I think it's really important to like kind of forget your ego and go, right, am I realistically going to be able to take off on these set waves and make them? Or will me being out there just be like a hindrance to more advanced surfers who can make it? And most importantly, like, am I going to have a good time out there? Is there an opportunity for me to slip onto the inside and catch some waves? Or is it above my ability? Just kind of thinking about that a little bit more. So I hope this little breakdown has kind of shed a bit of light onto what goes on in the surfing lineup. You know, it's a weird and like complicated thing, but yeah, if you can use and implement some of the things I've told you today, I hope they can help you like get a few more waves when it's crowded. So any questions, please let me know down in the comments. Please like and subscribe if you found this video helpful, but for now it's goodbye from me, and I'll see you in the next episode.